co-host, Jessica Seal. Jessica, I'm going to throw it to you today. I think you have a topic. You
I
told me you had a
do.
topic.
I
Let it
do.
rip.
I had something happen this week that, for those of you that are listening that have lost someone and you feel engaged, the ability to share that experience with others, it opens a door for something. And that door is for people to feel comfortable to express some of their own issues to you. And that happened to me. And this isn't the first time, but this time was a little unique because it was someone who I was kind of called out of left field. Um, and I have a degree in social work. I've done training on suicide prevention, developing a safety plan, but certainly I am not a therapist. And so I get a little nervous about that, Dennis. And so this time was no different. But it made me aware of what my role or our role is essentially, which is, first of all, to keep them safe, whatever that looks like, meaning well, we need to get you somewhere. And I did that. And it was an interesting experience. And to be honest with you, it really struck me, and I wasn't I wasn't really good for the rest of the day. I have to be honest. It hit me in a place that I didn't expect. I felt a whole lot of responsibility.
That happens. And for the listeners out there, Jessica and Dennis, between us, we lost 3 people to suicide and we started talking about it. We just started talking about it. And when you talk about it, people will approach you with their story. And as you heard from Jessica and myself included, not a therapist, not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. There's 2 people that are bopping through life, and we lost loved ones to suicide, and that's why it is a tough subject because stuff like this. But people will reach out. And you know who was super freaked out about when I started speaking about this? My mom. She's since passed, but she was like, "You're not going out there pretending to be a therapist, are you?" I said, "No, mom, I'm not. I'm chasing people into therapy."
But
You
I want
know,
to ask you
uh,
something, Dennis. I want your opinion. You do this publicly more than I do. But I think about the work that I do around drug and alcohol, and what a peer support specialist is. Are you familiar with that term? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I'm signed up hopefully to get trained on to be a peer support specialist in December. I'm on the waiting list.
Okay, with SC Share, I believe, here in
I
South
see
Carolina.
share the group over here is Favor does it as well. Voices, Faces and Voices of Recovery. And I went through the Phoenix House, which is a place that they recommended I go there.
So, for folks listening, those are South Carolina resources. We really have some amazing people working in this space, but I have not done training. Training sometimes comes just from experience in life. And I kind of saw myself in this role as a peer support specialist from the perspective of a survivor, but not someone who had survived a suicide attempt. But also, I saw myself as a person that cares about others. And I think when I was talking with this particular individual, I my priority was again to first of all make sure that they knew that I was always there. You have my number. Let's identify some other folks, and let's get you in therapy as soon as possible. And I followed up with her, and she did tell me I didn't leave her. I was in the middle of the workday. I certainly had things to do, but um, there's no greater task than to keep someone alive. Nothing trumps that, right? And so
And
it was, that's just something you need to be prepared for, folks. If you're talking or folks know your story and it's been a while, especially if you appear to be someone, and I say appear, that has this whole thing figured out. We know we don't. People are going to be drawn to you.
that is so true. And they, in a couple ways, a lot of people think, because I speak about my brothers, that they're ready to do it. So I get a lot of people come up and say, I want to do what you do. I said, "All right, what's your story?" And they tell me, and I don't mind helping anyone craft your story. But you gotta be super careful in this arena, um, how you say what you say. And, but you brought up a great point that when you say you're a survivor of suicide, you have to add that last word, loss,
That's right.
be because in our world, and for the listeners out there, in our world, I'm a survivor of suicide loss. If somebody had an attempt and by the grace of God, they're still with us. That's called someone with lived experience. Lived experience. They went dark. Um, it got serious. Like they were close, and then they came back. Woo! Thank God for that. That's someone with lived experience. So I remember saying that early on, Jessica, to somebody. I'm a survivor of suicide, and I don't think I said the loss part. And they said, "Oh, how'd you attempt?" I said, "Well, I didn't attempt. I'm a survivor of loss. I lost two brothers." But yet it's weird have to say that, and it's not weird anymore. It comes off, and I actually run a survivor of suicide loss meeting, so it's not weird anymore. But initially, we didn't have a name for our group. Like we didn't know what to call ourselves. And now that we have a name and a mission, what happened to you is not uncommon. You'll be vulnerable, and then people will say, "I could be vulnerable too."
Well, that's when I went back to school. My aim in the beginning was to do therapy. And then it became clear to me that I just didn't think that was going to be something that I could do day in and day out. How else can I serve and be an advocate and help others, but not have my everything in my world centered around that? I just don't think some people can. I just didn't think that was going to be something that I was going to be able to do. I mean, dealing with these, when again, there's a couple people have come to me and expressed that I feel more comfortable at talking, helping others that have lost someone like us, than maybe someone that is in that particular place right now. But I'll tell you what I did, folks. I sat with her. We sat there for 2 hours. We were having coffee. Um, I gave her space to tell me what was going on. She had expressed that she had just gone to our mental health organization here in South Carolina, and that they had given her a potential diagnosis, which is a little scary, of bipolar. And what happens, which is what my father had, and my brother, what happens is they become that diagnosis, and they feel like that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, this is what's wrong with me. I'm going to have to live with this. And it really is pretty dangerous, in my opinion. And so uh, I focused more on what was going on in her life now, and found out she's a musician and she loves music. And we talked a lot about that. And I kind of steered away from the negativity more to the positivity. Brilliant girl, getting ready to go for her PhD. And so I emailed her a list of the positive things that we talked about so she could look at that. Connected her with a therapist, encouraged her to go beyond, to promise me that she was going to go to her next appointment. I followed up. And then privately, I called her employer because I know them, never said a name. This is the second person from this particular agency in South Carolina that's expressed this to me, and just point blank said, "What are you guys doing to connect with your employees about these types of issues?" And she said, "Thank you for bringing that up. It's been on our minds, on our hearts, and we got to do better." And I felt like that was all I could do. And I felt okay with that.
Well, you went above and beyond the call of duty. When you first mentioned I called the employer, I'm like, "Oh no, you didn't."
Yeah.
But you brought it up in a way where you didn't incriminate. 'Cause people are so worried
Mhm.
about when you admit it. Like I do a lot of talks at the military, and I'm wearing a camo hat, so guys, they think it's gonna be a career limiting move if you mention a mental health disorder. So you did it the right way, and hopefully they have, an employee assistance program that can help them out,
They
and,
do, but here's the thing, and this is what this person and I spoke about, and she works with me a lot across the state, so she gets it. I asked this individual, I said, "Do you have an employee assistance program? What resources do you have there?" And she knew nothing. We got to do better, folks. An employee assistance program is no good if the employees are not encouraged and educated. And number one thing that we've heard from people, as I've done some focus groups around this, is the privacy factor. Does my employer know I'm accessing this? Will they know this information about me? So we got to do better here, taking care of folks that are working adults, because they're humans just like us.
A great point. And in my talk, if I do a corporate gig, I often ask for slides about their EAP program. I need that stuff because we don't want to
Love
come
it.
out, you and I, not professionals, mental health advocates. I don't want to come out and say, "Hey, this is what you do," and then not tell them where to go. And I got invited one time to a prison, and it was interesting. The warden said to me, uh, she says, "You're here to talk to inmates and my employees, but you're really here." She goes, "You're really here to talk to my employees, and we have an employee assistance program, and nobody's using it." Like she knew the usage rates. They don't know your name. They don't know who you are. They just
Right.
know if anyone's accessing it. And EAPs are really good about not giving up that information. They don't go back to the employees. Hey, check out, Joe Blow on the third shift. He's a ticking time bomb. They don't do that. They want to. They're rooting for you. So she gets utilization rate like of 100 employees, 3 use it. Well, that would be 3%. All right, good with math, but the goal would be 10% or higher usage because and then the opposite of that, Jessica, I tell you, I did a talk at a construction company, and the owner, they had an employee assistance program for 1 year, and the owner then had to resign that, re up. It's like insurance every year. I had to re up and he looked at the usage rate and didn't realize so many of his employees were hurting.
Wow.
So he signed up like he goes, it was a no brainer. Year two was, year one was tough because he had to pay for it. He goes, year two was a no brainer. He just
That's
signed it.
Well, and we, even in my own organization, because of the work that I do, and just kind of sidebar, actually am working on a program in our state for recovery friendly workplaces, developing an inclusive culture, an open culture, supportive culture, not just for substance use recovery, but for overall mental health, right? So that you can come. Sometimes work is stress. Who knows what's going on in someone's home? By the way, very interesting. My father, when he died from suicide, he was working at a treatment facility.
Whoa.
Yes, no one knew. My mom knew. My mom was working there with him. They knew, I believe that they knew, had he had been in and out of treatment, not there necessarily, but in another location. But they never, and now this was in 1992, but they never kind of peeled back that onion and said, "Hey, I know have had some things going on." He was hiding it, and it just has always blown me away that you're taking care of folks there. What about the people that are working with you?
Wow, yeah. Wow. Every week you reveal like a tidbit. I'm always like, holy crap. Uh, for those listening, Jessica lost her father to suicide. I lost 2 brothers, but every week you come up with something like, oh dang. So he was working at a treatment facility.
Yes, yes,
Well, those folks, let's give them a tip of the hat. They have a hard job, and it's
I do.
we often, this is terrible, but it happened. I was working the suicide prevention lifeline, and we lost one of our volunteers.
Right, same thing. Like,
Because you're around it. You're right
right.
there. It was a worker's daughter who volunteered on the helpline. It was awful, but you're close to the fire, and
When you said prison, I thought, from my perspective, I had some engagement with prison before in my previous career, and would have meetings there. And man, it was a dank, horrible feeling, negative space. I could not imagine for those folks that work in that environment, God bless them, how it would feel to be there day in and day out. I would have to take a toll on your psyche and other jobs as well. Therapy, like you said, that's why I couldn't do it. I said, this isn't going to be healthy for me, and I gotta take care of me, or I can't do anything.
Yeah, corrections officer has to be a really tough job on
Very
your
tough.
mental health. Very tough. So thoughts and prayers for those folks. And that's, I've done a couple prisons and I spoke to the inmates and they were really cool, but I was always brought in um, under the guise of speaking to the inmates, but we did a luncheon for the employees and it was always for them. It was
Yeah.
really for them. And they were awesome, by the way. Both groups, the inmates and then the employees had, well, like you started off the call, I was at one prison and one of the employees fessed up to me about a situation they were in. And it's hard from it's hard and good at the same time. It's hard because like we're in a lunch line and there's a lot of people around. And
Yeah.
we really had and it was and he took me out in the hall and told me a story. I'm like, whoa. And then like first thing, are you getting professional help? Because
Mhm.
I'm just a guy. Yes, he was. Do you have support system in place? Yes, he did. Just because I'm going to leave soon. When I'm done with that day, I'm leaving that facility. I just had to know this guy was in the right hands, and what everything he was saying, um, he was hopefully doing, and you just gotta
Mhm.
trust him. But he was sincere enough, yeah, and he mentioned some stuff that he was in a unique profession, and he knew some of the professional people that I was talking about in that profession that help people like that. He knew the names. I could tell he was doing the homework. Like,
Which is
so it's
good. I mean, same with this
yeah,
person. She's in public health, she knows. And you're talking about keeping it quiet. One of the main reasons I said something was because when she was in my first presentation that I did when I was terrified, one of the first times I spoke and told my story, which was at a meeting, a public health meeting, which is what I work in. And this was my session alone. I was talking about suicide, what a rates look like, and then I told that story. And if you ever hear it, and Dennis, that there's a lot of things about that time in my life that I was ashamed of. I mean, I was arrested and I, flunked out of college and did all kind of things just looking for relief. And I talk about that, and I didn't want to. I was scared, but I think that is. I was like, my God, are people going to look at me different professionally? They didn't. Actually, they looked at me different in a good way. Like, wow, this is inspiring. But this particular person was in there and jumped up and ran out and was crying, and I was like, and I'm sure you've experienced that. And I was like, wow, okay, what am I going to do? And her employer went out with her and later on, after, brought her back to me. And the first thing I said was, she goes, please talk to her. And I said, I, am not a clinical professional, but I will certainly listen to you and do whatever I can do with that's within my own power and ability. So this is something that she's been dealing with for a while, but man, it's a heavy load for us, isn't it?
it is, and it's also a calling because you mentioned somebody running out. That's happened. It happened early in my career, and it happened as early as last week.
Wow.
I was speaking, and I'm always if you look at me struggling for words, I'm trying to disguise where I was because it's we don't want to have a confidential agreement with these folks, but I don't want to disclose where I
Sure.
was or for sake of protecting that person. But I was speaking to a university setting and I talk in these very general terms. And sure enough, 3 slides in, maybe this person bolted for the door.
Mm.
And thank God we do this talk, right before I go on, I said, listen, if you have to leave and you're just going to the bathroom, give me the thumbs up. But if this subject is raw, I have a content warning slide, and if you have one, Jessica, you need one. And I was told because of what we do,
I do. I do.
you shouldn't call it a trigger warning anymore. I heard that, because firearms are used in 54%. It's a delicate balance. So I
It's
struggle with
so
that because
hard. You never know when you're
I
gonna
had
step on a landmine, right?
oh, I
Good
did.
intention.
I had trigger warning on the slide. And then later on, a counselor came up. She goes, and she gave me
Oh,
a great term, like, don't tell me it's wrong. Help me fix it. And she goes, it would be better if you put content warning I'm like, "Thank you." Like, you're just not coming up here to bitch about something. You have a solution, and I literally just changed it right there in front of her. I said, "That is awesome." Because we're all in this together. And that changed over the years. We used to say trigger warning, trigger warning. Now you say content warning. So I said that in the beginning. I said content warning. We're going to talk about suicide. It's going to get if you have to get up and leave. I get it. Grace will be given, but I'm asking for somebody in this room to follow that person. And sure enough, 3 slides in, boom, she heads for the exit. And I'm so proud of this group. Boom, somebody was right after her. And what's cool because you're there and the magic happens after the talk, in my humble opinion,
Yes.
she came back with
Yeah.
that friend. They came back into the room and she apologized for leaving. I'm like, oh, please, no apology necessary. And then told me her situation. It was raw. It was a recent death by
Mm,
suicide. So it's raw. Mine are pretty embedded in the past, pretty far back.
yeah.
But if you're walking into my talk and it was 2 weeks ago, look out. It's going to come bubbling up real quick. And grief does that. It just sneaks up on you. And it could be late. It could be someone who lost somebody 30, 40 years ago. You never know how grief works. And all of a sudden I say one word or play one song and it triggers, it makes you emote in a certain way. Uh, it, Grief is sneaky like that. It just jumps on your back.
Oh, 100% sneaky. You're right. Sometimes it'll just you'll get that lump in the throat. You know what I mean? There's no warning. But I think if you have that, that just makes you a more compassionate, empathetic person. That's that reminder in your heart that why you do what you do and why you're a person that I think what I thought afterwards, not making it about me at all, but I was proud that this person who could be my child, who had seen me one time speak, didn't know me, had asked me to do some work with her about a year ago, but thought enough in a time of crisis to text me. And she did the week before and said, I just left. I had this diagnosis. I need someone to talk to. And you came to mind. Man, what a
Wow.
privilege to be someone considers a safe person that is not judgmental and that they can share something so personal and private with. I've done something right in my life, and so have you, Dennis.
Well, it's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift.
A gift through pain, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't given easy. You didn't get it easy. You got it through some of the deepest pain you can imagine, really.
Oh yeah, we definitely earned it. And I need you to talk a little bit because I just got a warning on my computer. This is hilarious. Low battery. I thought I plugged it in. I didn't. So do you I'm gonna ask you a question, then I'm gonna bend down and pick up that cord that's right below me.
Yeah.
Did it mess you up for a while? Like, were you okay? Like, people come at you, are you able to brush it off and go about your
No,
day?
no, I couldn't brush it off. Um, I left. It was on my heart for the whole entire afternoon, but I told some folks in my office once I got back to work, and I needed to share that, hey, I just went through this. I just need y'all to know. I just needed someone to know that this happened to me and I am not okay. I became okay. I certainly, I have a lot of faith. I'm a Christian. I prayed about it. I felt, that's when I felt the urge to contact that employer and say, you guys what are you guys doing to help your employees? And it just happened to be that this was after the hurricane. We had a terrible hurricane that hit a couple states. South Carolina was one. And
Sure.
folks had lost a lot, and there was that trauma was going on in this organization as well. So it was almost like um, divine intervention. This was a perfect time to bring this into play. But I felt like, you know, I'm very much into working with businesses and organizations that employ people because I feel like that's a space where we need to be doing better.
I'm impressed that you took that extra step because it's important for an employee. I talked about this. There was an article in Pit and Quarry magazine, and it was that's a lot of miners. They do I spoke at Martin Marietta, and they do rocks. They make little rocks from big rocks, and I was telling this guy in the magazine interview that the employer has to make the room safe. If a guy goes to the restroom and he sees a 988 sign at the urinal, he knows that they care. Listen, little things like that. I'm not kidding. It's little things like that.
No, a
And
thousand percent agree.
yeah, and I'm joking because I have to put it on the back of the door for the ladies to see because different mechanisms of action.
I never
But
thought about that.
yeah, you never thought about it. God would never see it. You put it in the back of the door, he may not see. You got a 50-50 shot. I'll see it.
That's right.
You put it in front of the urinal, we're going to see it. It's right there. Eyes forward. You're not supposed to look to the side. So your eyes forward, put it right smack in front of them. But it's little things like that that make people know that they can talk about it. You put
That's
your
right.
employee assistance program reminder. You put, are you struggling or are you okay signs. Here's what we have. And then they know. It's
Well,
it
and
sounds so
I
trite, but it
no,
people
it
need to know.
doesn't. I agree with you. It used to be, think about it this way. Somebody said this to me. It used to be you go to work, you keep your business to yourself. You go to work, you get your work done, you disconnect from life, your life, and then you go home. That's not realistic. Our brains don't just, cut off at 8 a.m. and cut back on at 5 p.m. That does not work. We can't do that anymore.
Well, that's a classic like 1950s, dad goes to work, but he comes home and he gets hammered. He's always just
Wonder
stressing about
why.
something. Yeah, he goes and has a scotch in his robe and his slippers, and we're going to cope with something somehow. If you don't get it out in a positive way, it'll come out in a negative way. Um, and it's hard now, especially, and I'm not throwing technology under the bus, but I'm going to throw technology under the bus. It's hard to get away from work these days. Gone are the days, you literally left your briefcase in the car. It was just papers. It wasn't a computer, and you just closed the door. My dad, but God bless him, he used to drive from New York to Wilmington, North Carolina. He was a sales rep for a paper mill, and the paper mill was outside of North Carolina. And I said to him, I said, Dad, what did you do on the way down? Like you didn't have a cell phone. He had to pull
Oh,
over.
imagine it. Horrible.
He would pull over somewhere like in Maryland or somewhere, and he'd check the office. He'd call the office on a payphone, dial like a 20-digit number using his credit card for the phone. He would check in, and then he goes, "All right, I'll handle that tomorrow when I get to the office." And then he goes to me, he was joking. He goes, "And then I just enjoyed the ride because nobody was bugging him. Like he literally hung up the payphone, knew he had stuff to do tomorrow. It could wait. It wasn't an emergency, and he just drove to North Carolina and enjoyed the ride. Put the radio on, and he was working technically. He was in transport, but man, oh man, now people would be ringing us up. We'd have them on the Bluetooth speaker. We'd pull over if we had to, if it's a situation. That
The
separation,
the
that
watch, you
separation.
don't have. There's
Oh,
no.
the what?
There's no separation. Although I did do one thing. I took the notifications off my phone for my work email. And that was a tiny little piece to disconnect that really it had a great impact. I'm glad I did it
Oh yeah, good
because work
move.
stress it can be, you spend more time there oftentimes than at home, and it can be debilitating. I would say, and I have no problem if someone works with me and they hear this, but I will say that one of my main stressors that I deal with is my job, my place of employment. And it's
Oh,
not
that's
what
good.
I do, it's the people.
And that's often when I worked in the suicide prevention lifeline. People often called because of the way they were treated by other people. That's just humans. It's, be it at work or play or home, how we treat each other is a big um, mental health contributor, positive and
Well,
negatively.
yep,
You
yep.
know, if
And
someone treats you right, you're in a good mood. If they treat you wrong, you're in a bad mood.
well,
Hey,
and just
we're co
before we get done, I do want to say that this particular person, one thing I did say, and we need to think about with work employees is I said, do you have someone while you're at work that you can talk to, or that you can tell if you're in a situation? And she said, maybe. So that's something, you know,
That's a good idea because we have these safety plans, and you're supposed to put people on there that your go-to people. You really should have a go-to person at work, like
hmm
almost a buddy system in place, because you're right, 8 or 9 hours at the office, um, even in remote settings too, you're on the phone 2, 3, 4, 5 hours with these people in these conference calls. You should have that go-to person at work too. "I'm not having a good day."
that's right.
Hey, and we'll bring it home. We always promise people 30 minutes, but that's a good point. The workplace. So what we covered today is one, what do you do when someone comes up to you and then you went the extra step, Jessica, and contacted the workplace and said, "Hey, this is employee number 2
Mhm.
from your organization. What are you all doing?" And the person received that feedback
Very well, very
in the
proactive.
spirit. It was, they don't want to lose anybody in the spirit that was intended. And maybe I'll tee up the next podcast with this one. I Every now and then, because of what we do, and like when people come up to you and you're vulnerable, I have to surround myself with positive vibes. And my sister commented one time when she visited my office. I think there's one behind me right there. My story's not over. Stuff like that. My sister came into my office one time. She goes, "Hey, you got a lot of positive messages around your office." I said, "Janice, I need them. I need them because what we deal with is tough. I need to look up and see something good. There's a picture of my mom right behind me up there. I need to see, pleasant things." And I got a quote the other day, and this is going up on the wall for sure. And it says this, it says, "We aren't healing in order to handle trauma. We already know how to do that. We are healing in order to experience joy." And that one about knocked me out of my chair.
I love it.
So much that I printed it. I'm an old man. I printed it. Um, it was unbelievable. Like, the trauma I can deal with. I want to get back to joy.
That's right.
And then if grief does its work properly, and we'll end on this positive note, and hopefully this works. If grief does its work properly, we come out a better person. And then we know because of what we went through, we know exactly what joy looks like because we felt the opposite of it. And you can't have mountain peaks without the valleys and vice versa. So we're healing to experience joy, and I'm hoping this podcast helps people. So, Jessica, I appreciate your insight today. I appreciate you being out there and putting yourself out there, and then being a vessel for people to come up to afterwards and
It's
share the
what we
story. And
do.
that's a
It's
little
our
note for
gift.
our listeners. Our
Yeah.
listeners, if you're thinking about being vulnerable, be prepared for other vulnerable people to come at you, and look at it as it is. It's a blessing because you put yourself out there, they're going to put themselves out there, and they're going to do it to you. And that may be why you're on this planet. It may be
Your purpose.
your purpose. That's it. We all want to live a purpose in life. That's it. Our purpose is to help those that are hurting. And hopefully this podcast helps. So I'm Dennis Gillen. That's Jessica Seal. That's another one in the can, Jessica. You be good.
You too. Bye,
All
folks.
right. Stay with me. Stay. Let me see if you're 99% uploaded. All right. You're uploaded. You're good.
Okay.
Very well done there. Well, I'm impressed with that you took that extra step. I meant that.
Oh, well, I felt like it was just on my heart. And I knew that I could. I knew that I had a relationship with this organization to where I could say, and it is an issue. They're very, I mean, between you and I won't say it on out loud, but it's the